All right, welcome back to another edition of the Throws Doc podcast. I'm your doc, Dr. Charles Inferno, where we're writing scripts to cure your throwing ailments. And the ailments we're going to talk about today is focused on time and patience. Yep, time and patience. Script, well, it's kind of a lengthy script that we're going to talk about. But the reason why I want to talk about that is the other day, well, I guess more than the other day, like 2 weeks ago, an athlete reached out to me to provide them some feedback on their throws and what they could do to improve their distances, right, in the weight throw. So we exchanged some Instagram messages, and I asked for a couple videos. I provided some feedback, no big deal. Like, these are a couple of cues, these are a couple drills that you can work on based on what I see from your meet performances and your practice performances. And they had a meet, and they threw like their second best throw ever, which is wonderful. I thought that was going to be the end of the relationship, if you will. They sent another message back, well, what's next? I was like, all right. I was like, based on what you threw this past weekend, these are some additional steps that you can take in practice that aren't necessarily focused on physical ailments, but more mental ones possibly. Because from what I was seeing in the practice videos and what they shared with meet videos, totally different thrower, more intensity, but technically not quite as sound as in practice. So I shared a message about the importance of focusing on 1 or 2 cues per week or per meet, and then depending on how the meet goes, we could refine what's happening, right? And that although it's important to throw farthest at competitions, we want to try and have a somewhat technically sound model to follow up with, right? Like, we just don't want to let technique fall by the wayside, because eventually that technique is going to catch up to us, and where we might be successful at like local meets and local competitions in the area, any area, your regional area or your county or what have you, that eventually if you get to a meet of high importance, a meet of high significance, right, state qualifier, states, that all things being equal, you need to have a sound mental model and a sound technical model. So, and the next piece of suggestions that I shared was, it looks like you enter the circle differently every time. Your setup is different, your entry is different, everything is different before you even initiate the throw. So I said, try and focus on entering the circle the same every single time. Have a cue at the front of your brain before you initiate your throw, and that's it. Try and make it look exactly the same every single time, because the 6-7 videos that they shared with me, totally different entry, different wind, different step in, different everything. And that was basically the cue for this past weekend, and we saw a PR and a huge improvement. I can't tell you for certain if it was the enter the same way every time, do the same thing every time, or if it was the focus on 1 or 2 cues at the meet every single time. And it's interesting because I think sometimes as throwers, as athletes, like, we might take stuff for granted, like how we enter the circle, how we hold ourselves to whatever standard that we have. But having a firm technical model and having an idea of 1 or 2 cues before a competition is going to help you be a better prepared thrower and should reduce the stress and anxiety of competing, because you're doing the exact same thing every single time you step into the circle.